Good morning, everyone, and welcome. Today, we're going to explore the fundamental approaches to real estate property valuation. Our focus will be a comprehensive analysis of the sales comparison and cost methods, both essential tools for achieving accurate market assessments. I'm excited to dive into these techniques with you and uncover how they can be applied effectively in the real estate market. Let's get started. When it comes to estimating the value of a property, there are several approaches, but today we'll focus on two main ones: the sales comparison approach and the cost approach. Each method has its unique way of determining value, and knowing how they work can really enhance your ability to make accurate valuations. It's important to understand these methods because choosing the right one depends heavily on the specific property you're evaluating and the current market conditions. Both approaches give us different insights, making them valuable tools in the overall real estate valuation process. The sales comparison approach is a method used to determine the value of a property by looking at similar properties that have recently sold in the same market. Essentially, it's about finding comparable sales to get a realistic picture of what the property is worth right now. One of the key strengths of this approach is that it reflects current market conditions, which makes it very relevant for valuing both residential and commercial real estate. To make this work, you need to carefully select comparable properties, those that share similar characteristics, and then adjust for any differences, such as size, location, or features. This way, the estimated value is as accurate as possible, giving buyers, sellers, and lenders a reliable basis for decision making. Overall, the sales comparison approach is one of the most widely used and trusted methods for property valuation in today's real estate market. When using the sales comparison approach, the first step is to select comparable properties. These comps should be similar to the property we're evaluating in terms of size, location, and overall condition. The goal here is to find properties that a buyer would realistically consider as alternatives. Next, we adjust the sale prices of these comparable properties. This means we account for differences like better amenities, a more favorable location, or differences in the property's condition. These adjustments help us level the playing field so that we're making an apples to apples comparison. Finally, we reconcile these adjusted prices. By analyzing the adjusted values, we arrive at a reasoned estimate of the market value for the subject property. This step combines all the data to give us the most accurate picture of what the property is worth in the current market. When we look at the sales comparison approach, it's helpful to consider some real examples and its key strengths. For residential homes, we compare properties by looking at things like their size, age, and the characteristics of the neighborhood they're in. This helps us make fair comparisons between similar houses. For commercial properties, the focus shifts slightly. We assess location and how the property is used, since those factors greatly influence value in the commercial market. One of the biggest advantages of this approach is that it provides a value that truly reflects current market conditions, making it very relevant and timely. Plus, it's straightforward to apply and easy to understand, which promotes transparency in the valuation process for both buyers and sellers. When using the sales comparison approach, there are some important limitations to keep in mind. First, this method relies heavily on having enough recent and comparable sales data available. Without sufficient data, it becomes difficult to make accurate comparisons. Second, the process involves making adjustments to account for differences between properties, and these adjustments can be quite subjective. The subjectivity can impact the overall accuracy of the valuation. Lastly, this approach is less effective when dealing with unique properties or newly built homes, since there may be few or no comparable sales to reference. These limitations highlight why it's crucial to carefully consider the context when applying the sales comparison approach. The cost approach is a method used to estimate the value of a property by calculating how much it would cost to reproduce or replace the building. From that figure, we subtract any depreciation, like wear and tear or obsolescence, and then add the value of the land itself. This approach is particularly useful for new properties or special use buildings where it can be hard to find comparable sales data. Instead of focusing on market activity or recent sales, it centers on the actual construction costs. This makes it a reliable method when market information is scarce or when the property has unique characteristics. First, we start by estimating the land value, which means determining what the land itself would be worth if it were vacant and ready for its highest and best use. Next, we estimate the building costs, focusing on either the replacement cost or reproduction cost of the building and any improvements on the property. After that, we deduct accrued depreciation, which takes into account physical wear and tear, any functional obsolescence due to outdated features, and economic obsolescence from external factors affecting value. Finally, we add the land value to the depreciated value of the improvements to arrive at the total estimated property value. This step-by-step process gives a comprehensive picture of the properties worth using the cost approach. The cost approach is especially valuable in certain situations. For instance, it's commonly used to value new construction properties, where there aren't many or any comparable sales to reference yet. It's also ideal for special use or unique properties. Think of buildings that don't frequently change hands, so there's limited market data available. This method shines when comparable sales data is scarce or unreliable, giving us a more solid foundation for valuation. Perhaps most importantly, it provides an objective measure by focusing on the actual cost of construction and land, rather than relying solely on market trends or sales figures. This makes it a reliable approach in challenging valuation scenarios. Now, let's look at some limitations of the cost approach. First, accurately estimating depreciation is quite complex and demands detailed analysis. It's not always straightforward to determine how much value a property loses over time. Second, while cost estimates provide a baseline, they often don't fully reflect current market preferences or demand. This means the value derived might not align perfectly with what buyers are looking for right now. Lastly, the cost approach becomes less relevant in active markets where there's plenty of reliable comparable sales data available. In those cases, other valuation methods tend to offer more accurate insights. When we compare the sales comparison approach and the cost approach, it's important to understand the strengths of each method. The sales comparison approach is especially useful when there are reliable comparable sales available and the market conditions are stable. This method bases evaluation directly on actual market data, which often makes it more reflective of current market trends. On the other hand, the cost approach is most beneficial for new or unique properties where comparable sales are hard to find. It requires detailed information about the construction costs and any depreciation, making it particularly helpful when estimating value for properties that don't have similar ones recently sold nearby. So, each approach has its ideal scenarios depending on the type of property and market data available. To summarize, the sales comparison and cost approaches are fundamental frameworks that help us estimate property values effectively. By thoroughly understanding how these methods work, along with their strengths and limitations, we can make valuation decisions that are not only accurate, but also well suited to the specific property type and market conditions. This thoughtful application ultimately boosts the credibility and reliability of our appraisals, ensuring they hold up under scrutiny and provide meaningful insights.